And to your point, I am very disappointed in American African people, our community here, because we have done next to nothing to give our children an independent opportunity to get a decent education. Black people are a $2 trillion economy in this country. We are the richest group of Africans in the world. We are also arguably the most educated group of Africans in the world. We're the 10th richest economic bloc on the planet Earth. And yet we hardly have any schools that we own, that we control for our children. It makes no sense for the Black boys and girls in Detroit, the Black boys and girls in Flint, the Black boys and girls in Big Rapids, in Grand Rapids, in Muskegon. It makes no sense in Kalamazoo. It makes no sense for these Black children to be getting special educated, medicated, miseducated, juvenile, incarcerated, and prematurely exterminated.
That there is a genocide in this country.
Sikukuwa najua.
I didn't know.
Sikukuwa najua kama hapa mwa nchi.
I didn't know that here in America
kunaweza kuwa execution ya mtu kwa kumuua.
There can be an execution style to kill someone.
Kwa kuua mtu na risasi.
To kill someone with a gun.
Tena uwawe na askari polisi mkubwa.
And to be killed by the police officer.
Kwa nia yangu mimi,
on my wish now,
nilikuwa najua kama ukikutana na polisi,
I knew that if you met with a police officer in America,
utakuwa umesave maisha yako.
You will be safe. Your life will be spared.
Lakini cha kunililisha kabisa kuona
what is making me cry more to see my son
ameuawa kabisa na askari polisi mkubwa.
He has been killed by a police officer.
Hello, everyone. You are with Urban Interest, and I am your host, Angela Matthews. Listen, it is a great and awesome Good Friday. I don't know where you are and what you're doing, but we're going into this weekend, this holiday weekend. So whatever the religion or your affiliation, just have a blessed and wonderful weekend. We're going to talk about a couple of stories today. We're going to talk about the promises made by politicians. However, there was a killing in Grand Rapids, Michigan, regarding a young immigrant, as well as California passing a progressive reparations report. Then we are going to get into some conversations with a very special guest of ours, Dr. Umar Johnson. He is internationally renowned. You will hear from him because we're gonna have a great conversation today. We're gonna dig deep into some things. So listen, stay put, stay connected. We will be right back on this Good Friday, so don't go anywhere.
Movies, documentaries, TV shows, local, national, world news, history, and culture. No network can tell your story better than UIN because we are you. With us, you can become more than just a consumer. You become a keeper of the culture and empowered. Go to uintv.net, click on a channel to support and subscribe today. Do it now.
Can I ask you a question? Why'd you get vaccinated?
I'd like to go to these school dances and spring break to have fun.
I want to be in person for college next semester.
I want to get out of this pandemic.
I wanted to protect the people around me.
Why did you get vaccinated?
Because I'm really looking forward to hanging out with my friends.
I just want to go to a show, dance around, not have to worry about anything, feel like I'm free again.
So we can not miss out on the best years of our life.
All right, everyone, let's get into our stories. So despite the high hopes and promises by politicians since George Floyd, that killing of George Floyd, the murder of Black, mostly men, by police continues. So last week in the city of Grand Rapids, Michigan, a young African immigrant was murdered, execution style, by Grand Rapids police. Let's take a look at this video.
Asante sana.
Thank you so much.
Mimi ni Peter Lioya.
I am Peter Lioya.
Baba yake ya Patrick Lioya.
I am the father of Patrick Lioya.
Patrick Lioya ni mtoto wangu wa kwanza.
Patrick Lioya is my firstborn son.
Alikuwa na miaka 26.
And he was 26 years old.
Kama mnaniona hapa,
the way you see me now,
sina mengi ya kuongea.
I don't have much to say.
Roho yangu inavunjika kabisa.
My heart is really deeply broken.
Sikuwa najua kama katika hii nchi,
I didn't believe that in this country,
kama kuko genocide.
That there is a genocide in this country.
Sikukuwa najua.
I didn't know.
Sikukuwa najua kama hapa mwa nchi,
I didn't know that here in America,
kunaweza kuwa execution ya mtu kwa kumuua.
There can be an execution style to kill someone.
Kwa kuua mtu na risasi.
To kill someone with a gun.
Tena uwawe na askari polisi mkubwa.
And to be killed by the police officer.
Kwa nia yangu mimi,
on my wish now,
nilikuwa najua kama ukikutana na polisi,
I knew that if you met with a police officer in America,
utakuwa umesave maisha yako.
You will be safe. Your life will be spared.
Lakini cha kunililisha kabisa kuona
what is making me cry more to see my son
ameuawa kabisa na askari polisi mkubwa.
He has been killed by a police officer.
Kwa kosa ndogo sana.
For a small mistake, fault.
Wakati nimeona video hii,
by the time when I saw this video,
roho yangu kabisa imevunjika.
My heart was really deeply broken.
Hapa naona kabisa ni maisha yangu, sina maisha.
Right now I'm seeing that I have no life. My life has come to their hand.
Maisha yangu ilikuwa tayari ni Patrick, mtoto wangu.
My life was Patrick, my son.
Nilikuwa nawazia Patrick ndo sasa amenigomboa.
I was thinking that Patrick will take my place.
Lakini kuona kabisa ameuawa unyama na ule askari polisi.
And to see that my son has been killed like an animal by this police officer.
Kwa kweli kwa kuona hii video wametangaza.
And to see this video they show.
Hapa naona sina maisha, nimesikia roho yangu kabisa imevunjika.
I see that I have no life. I see my heart being broken.
Naomba sheria.
I'm asking for justice.
Naomba sheria.
I'm asking for justice.
Naomba sheria.
I'm asking for justice.
Yes. Naomba sheria juu ya Patrick.
I'm asking for justice for Patrick.
Justice for Patrick. Naomba sheria juu ya Patrick.
I'm asking justice for Patrick.
Patrick ni mtoto wangu mtulivu sana.
Patrick was a quiet kid.
Hakukuwa na nia ya kugombana au mtu wa vita.
Patrick didn't like to fight. He was not a brutal kid.
Lakini nimeshangaa kuona ofisi mkubwa yeye ndo anampiganisha Patrick.
And I was surprised to see that it was the officer that was really beating Patrick.
My. Our thoughts and our prayers and our hearts go out to this family. This young immigrant was from the Congo and he left there to escape violence only to be gunned down in America. And you saw the mother of Breonna Taylor standing in support with the family, knowing this situation all too well. Just heartbreaking. California has passed one of the most progressive reparations reports yet. It could be a model for other states. To determine who will be eligible, they use the lineage criteria. Let's take a look.
The California's Reparation Task Force has made a big decision. Last night, it held a vote on who is eligible for compensation, and the results were close. ABC 10's Monica Coleman joins us now. So, Monica, where does the group stand this morning?
Well, the 9-member task force, by a 5-4 vote, decided reparations will be limited to the descendants of enslaved people. ABC 10 spoke to Camilla Moore, chairperson of the task force, to find out why they decided to base the payments on lineage and not race. Going against the argument, all Black people, regardless of lineage, deserve reparations because of systematic racism in housing, education, and employment.
Lineage matters. When we're talking about reparations for the institution of slavery, we're talking about a particular group of people and a particular crime against humanity, that being the institution of slavery as it was enacted and constructed in the United States.
The task force also opened eligibility to freed Black people who came to the country in the 19th century due to it may be difficult to prove the bloodline of the time one was enslaved. When it comes to compensation, it could be in the form of free college, assistance buying a home, or launching businesses and grants to churches, but the task force has not voted on a concrete plan.
So, Monica, what are the next steps with this?
So, Bria, there's a lot of questions still, right? So there will be another meeting today. We'll be following up on that because the task force still needs to talk about how they are going to get reparations out to the people who are eligible and furthering this onward.
I can think of a lot of questions that come along with it, but hopefully we'll have some answers on that in the coming meetings. Monica, thank you.
All right, naturally, there is a lot of opposition to this from whites as well as blacks, who say African Americans who are descendants from enslaved Africans should not be given reparations. They are given nothing, and it is a debt owed. Can you even believe that statement? So listen, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk to this famed person, Dr. Umar Johnson. I am so excited to talk to him and get into some conversation, some things that are on my mind. I think Dr. Johnson is going to help me with that. So stay put, stay connected. We'll be right back.
Today, we bring you the first part of our global broadcast exclusive conversation.
The streets of Tahrir have once again been filled.
Key issues here at the United Nations Climate Change Conference remain unresolved.
Police are saying the protesters to move further and further away.
I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!
These battles make it hurt.
All right, everyone, I'm smiling because we get to talk to Dr. Umar Johnson, who is a doctor of clinical psychology and certified school psychologist, who is considered an expert on education and mental health of African and African American children. We know that our mental health has just been exacerbated by this pandemic. He is also the founder and lead tour guide for the Unapologetically African Black College and Consciousness Tour, as well as founder and president of the National Independent Black Parent Association. Welcome, Dr. Umar Johnson, to Urban Interest.
Peace and Pan-Africanism. Glad to be with you.
All right. So for those who may not know, what is Pan-Africanism, and is it a religion, political affiliation, or is it just a belief system?
It is absolutely not a religion. Pan-Africanism is the Black man's oldest formal political ideology, and as such, we have the most distinguished ancestors amongst the pantheon of great Pan-Africanists that go from the most honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, who gave us the largest Black organization in modern history, as well as the red, black, and green flag, to Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who was the first post-colonial leader to lead an African nation to independence. And then back here in the States, we have Martin Delany, who was the first African admitted into Harvard Medical School, but he could not complete his studies because his white classmates protested his attendance. We have Bishop Henry McNeil Turner of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, who's the first Black man to say that God was Black. And we have so many great Pan-Africanists who have contributed to the global African liberation struggle. I would summarize Pan-Africanism in 3 points. Number one, all African people are one family. We are one family, and we should identify with that family as a priority above and beyond any other affiliation that we have. So we're not Christians who happen to be Africans. We're Africans who happen to be Christians. We're not Muslims who happen to be Black. We are Black people who happen to be Muslim. Being African is the most important identity that you have because it is the only one chosen by God. You chose to go to the church. You chose to go to the masjid. You chose to be a citizen of America. You chose to be a Mason. You chose to be an Elk. God chose for you to be an African. So we believe that our African racial identity is a priority, and that all African people, whether we're in America speaking Ebonics, whether we're in Brazil speaking Portuguese, whether we are in South Africa speaking Zulu, whether we are in London, England speaking the Queen's English, we are all one family, and we should see ourselves as one collective family. Number two, We believe in self-determination. What is to be done for African people must be done exclusively by African people. There is no non-African membership in our movements at all. There is no non-African funding in our institutions, which naturally leads itself to the conclusion that Black families are to be constituted exclusively by Black men and Black women. We do not support interracial relationships in no way, shape, form, or fashion. We do not support integrated organizations in any shape, form, or fashion. We believe in total self-reliance, total African racial independence. We don't teach hate. We're not against any other race, but we prioritize our race, and we believe, as Marcus Garvey said, putting the race first. And the third point that I would mention, and there's many, but I'll limit it to three. The third point of Pan-Africanism, is that as Africa goes, so goes all African people in the world. From a Pan-Africanist perspective, we would interpret the treatment of Africans in America today. You just spoke about the Congolese brother who was murdered in Grand Rapids. I spoke at Breonna Taylor's one-year memorial in Louisville. Okay, all these deaths, Trayvon and Philando and Eric Gardner and little Tamir Rice and Sandra Bland and Amir Locke in Minneapolis. By the way, the police whom will not be charged, it was decided the other day. This is being done because we in America, who are Africans, don't want to be African, and we're not trying to establish a political relationship with our African nations on the continent. Chinese are respected wherever Chinese people are because China is respected and they have a relationship with their national homeland. European Jews are respected wherever they are because Israel is respected, and European Jews across the world have a relationship with Israel. East Indians are respected because India is respected. Black people in America get no respect because we have cut off our identity from our mother continent, and we have done nothing to make Africa what she should be so Africa can protect us towards becoming what we need to be.
All right there, Dr. Johnson, you've got my spirit all stirred up right here, and I'm trying to track with you because you are saying and speaking definitely some truths that we don't hear every day. You mentioned with regards to us, basically, I'm going to paraphrase, not respecting ourselves and not doing anything to really galvanize ourselves as these other nationalities and cultures have done. I know Africa about a few years ago was telling us, come on back home, and putting this whole campaign together for us to come back, but yet we have not accepted in full and totality that invitation. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. We are the quintessential psychologically homeless people in this country.
Woo.
The American African is a psychologically homeless being. We don't want to be who we are, but yet we know we will never be who we want to be. So you don't want to be African, and you'll never be fully allowed to be an American. So we are caught in this quagmire of hating our natural racial identity, and at the same time, neurotically, constantly trying to force our way into being viewed in America as Americans by America itself.
Well, all right, everyone, you are with Dr. Umar Johnson, and we're getting into these deep conversations today. Dr. Johnson, you have relation to both abolitionist Frederick Douglass and the late abolitionist Bishop Alexander Wayman, 7th Bishop of the AME Church. How, if at all, has this impacted your studies? I think we probably have just heard how it has impacted your studies with having relations to both of these well-respected, and in some cases feared with speaking the truth. But I'll put the question to you anyhow.
It's impacted me fully because I learned about my relationship to Frederick Douglass in 6th grade, I believe it was. My journey through Black consciousness began in the 4th and 5th grade in a Black history class that we had. And then in the 6th grade, I found that I was related to Frederick Douglass. In the 3rd grade, I decided I wanted to be a psychologist. So third grade, I decided to be a psychologist. Fourth and fifth grade, I was introduced to Black consciousness. Sixth grade, I learned I was related to Frederick Douglass. So I guess it's safe to say that I knew what my life work would be before I left elementary school. And I've never left it since.
That is, that is so critical, because here we're talking about in the United States about our children and the literacy rate. And we're talking about, well, how can we plant a different pathway for them? And it starts early, and it starts in, those early ages of childhood. And you just gave a very definite reason as to why we need to really invest more in our children at early ages.
And to your point, I am very disappointed in American African people, our community here, because we have done next to nothing to give our children an independent opportunity to get a decent education. Black people are a $2 trillion economy in this country. We are the richest group of Africans in the world. We are also arguably the most educated group of Africans in the world. We're the 10th richest economic bloc on the planet Earth. And yet we hardly have any schools that we own, that we control for our children. It makes no sense for the Black boys and girls in Detroit, the Black boys and girls in Flint, the Black boys and girls in Big Rapids, in Grand Rapids, in Muskegon. It makes no sense in Kalamazoo. It makes no sense for these Black children to be getting special educated, medicated, miseducated, juvenile, incarcerated, and prematurely exterminated because the Black community itself doesn't want to put our money together to build the schools that our children need that will give them the education that they are entitled to. Why are we fighting white people? 400 years later, we're fighting white people to give Black children an education that we could give them ourselves. It makes absolutely no sense. It's the same point I have when it comes to the 1619 Project. It's the same point I have when it comes to critical race theory. If you want to teach critical race theory, teach it in a Black church, teach it in a Black community, teach it in a Black home. Why do you need white people to endorse your critical race theory before you teach it to Black people? Why do you need white people to teach Black kids Black history? Why we can't do it ourselves? We got all these Black scholars, all these PhDs in African studies. We got all these Black churches, but yet we want to sit around and beg white women to teach Black kids where they come from. Absolutely insane. I don't want no white person teaching my daughter who Harriet Tubman was. I don't want no white person teaching my daughter who Ida B. Wells was. I don't want no white person teaching my daughter who Sojourner Truth and Fannie Lou Hamer were. That's the job of a Black woman to teach a Black girl who she is. And it's the job of the Black man to teach a Black boy who he is. But because we still suffer from the psychological residuals of slavery, i.e., post-traumatic slavery disease, just like children, we would rather spend our money on our wants and beg white people for our needs.
Ooh, post-traumatic slavery
disease. It is contagious. And we teach it to every subsequent generation of Black children born. That's why we can't get out of this. Why is it that a 5 or 6-year-old in kindergarten or first grade will go to school and call a richly melanated African Blackie and darky and ugly? Why do Black kids in kindergarten, and I know this because I work in the schools, why do Black kids in kindergarten talk about each other's hair? Your hair is nappy and you need a perm and your lips are too big and your nose is too broad. Who taught them that? Because they were not born out of the womb with that type of self-hate. Their mothers and fathers are teaching them self-hate, which is why, in my humble opinion, the Black church and the Black family is just as guilty as the white media and the white public school for teaching Black kids how to hate themselves. You send a child to church and you put them in front of a white Jesus. And I want to separate religion from imagery, by the way, because I don't have a problem with Christianity or Islam. Most of my Pan-African forefathers were pastors of the church. My issue is with the images in the Black church. So you have Easter Sunday coming up. All these black children are going to go to churches, most of whom got a white image of their Jesus, of their Lord and Savior. He's a white man with blue eyes and blonde hair. And they're going to teach these kids that this white man died for their sins. And when you indoctrinate the unconscious of a child with the belief that their enemy is their deity, when you indoctrinate a child with the belief that their enemy is their deity, then when that child becomes an adult, they will naturally bow down to white people. They will naturally feel inferior to white people. They will naturally serve white people, because if God is white, then every white person must be divine as well.
Now, you just segued into my next question, because there's a huge generation gap on this issue that you just talked about. So let us play this video real quick, because it definitely segues into what you just said.
Nearly all religions were brought to people and imposed on people by conquerors and used as the framework to control their minds. My main point here is that if you are the child of God and God is a part of you, then in your imagination, God's supposed to look like you. And when you accept a picture of the deity assigned to you by another people, you become the spiritual prisoners of that other people.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes, ma'am.
That is exactly what you were talking about, huh?
Absolutely.
The video says
Absolutely.
it all.
Absolutely. And I have heard from Black artists. I have heard from Black artists who belong to different Black churches around the country, who attempted to remake the image of Christ into the likeness of Black people, not only because the people who attend the church are Black, but because Jesus Christ himself was a dark-skinned African. How do we know this? Because the oldest pictures of Jesus in existence, and you can still see them, they're in Africa, they're in the Coptic Museum, and they're in other museums. The oldest statues, the oldest coins, the oldest paintings have Jesus as a blue, black, purple African with nappy hair. All 12 disciples, the same way, blue, black, purple with nappy hair. It is impossible, absolutely impossible for Jesus Christ to have pale skin, blue eyes, and straight hair, because that was not the phenotype of Israel. That was not the phenotype of any of the areas in which Jesus lived. And of course, we all know that as a child, his mother took him to hide amongst the Egyptians. Well, Egypt was named Egypt by the Greeks, and it means land of the blacks. So if he could hide amongst Black children, he must have been a Black child himself. So not only is this a form of self-hatred, a form of European imperialism, it is also a blatant lie that Black pastors should be ashamed of themselves for perpetuating this image of a white Christ when everybody knows that Jesus was not white.
So Dr. Johnson, from a psychological, standpoint, why are we so against these actual factual reports, documents? You research it, it's there, it's in our face, but yet we have a problem even accepting it.
It is post-traumatic slavery disease. What I believe that the white man should get an award for the greatest invention in modern history, because the greatest invention in modern history is the Negro. Because the Negro, the Black man and Black woman, the Negropean of the United States is the only living, breathing organism that will work against its own best interests voluntarily without being paid. There's no other group of people who will voluntarily self-destruct without being subsidized to do so. And we will do that. See, as long as you send Black children to public school, where they're taught to worship white people and their history, and then you send them to a Black church where they're taught to worship a white Jesus. Once you come from public school, white public school and Black church, you are all but a Negropean. You are an African in form, but you are a European in fact.
African in form,
but a European in fact. Because what the European has done, he has put his narrative inside our souls. He has put his opinions inside of our unconscious. Let's take Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black History Month, one of the first Africans to get a doctorate from Harvard University. Dr. Carter G. Woodson said in his book, Miseducation of the Negro, which I consider to be one of the 10 most important books ever written for African people ever. In that book, he says, when you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. When you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. If he needs to go to the back room, you don't have to tell him. He will get up and go to the back room without being told. And when he gets to the back room, if there is no door, he will make the door and walk out of it, because so is the conditioning of his mind. And I'm paraphrasing. And Dr. Carter G. Woodson also said that in creating Negro History Week, which became Black History Month, he said it would take him personally approximately 20 years to undo all the self-hate and the miseducation he got as a child and as a college student. And this is coming from the father of Black history. We don't understand how toxic public education is to the self-image of Black children, and we don't understand how dangerous the white image of Jesus is inside the Black church.
Well, to speak to a little bit to what you just said about the self-imagery of Black children, I do believe there were some reports where people were saying, we don't want Black history anymore. We don't want to hear about it. We don't want to do this anymore. Why are we doing this? Every month they cringe. All across America cringes because we're talking about Black history, but actually it's 365 days a year. That's Black history. 365.
Well, that is correct. Dr. Carter G. Woodson, though, he clarified this when Black History Month was started back in the 1920s. And he said that he chose February to be, white people didn't choose February, he did. And he chose February because it included the birthdays of both the Honorable Frederick Douglass and President Abraham Lincoln, who was given credit for the emancipation of our ancestors. And I say he was given credit because Abraham Lincoln didn't free the slaves actually freed Abraham Lincoln. Had it not been for our participation in the Civil War, the United States of America might be a confederacy today. And nobody has to take my words. If you read the testimonial from the Union soldiers, the Union generals, the lieutenants and the captains, they said that had it not been for the presence of the Black man, the Union cause may have been lost to the Confederacy. So Abraham Lincoln didn't free my ancestors. My 4 times great-grandfather, George Washington Bailey, he was in Galveston, Texas on June 19th when General Gordon Granger read Special Order Number 3, emancipating all previously held Africans in bondage in the state of Texas, giving birth to the Juneteenth holiday. My grandfather was there. My other grandfather, George Washington Bailey, was the first Black public school teacher in Denton, Maryland, and he also served in the Civil War. My 2 cousins, Lewis and Charles, the sons of Frederick Douglass, they fought in the Massachusetts 54th Colored Regiment, the most revolutionary and the most dangerous regiment of the entire Civil War. It's the regiment for which we get the movie Glory, starring Denzel Washington and Morgan Freeman. So can't nobody tell me Abraham Lincoln freed me. I freed Abraham Lincoln.
You know, Dr. Johnson, there's not much conversation to talk about, you know, the totality of the Civil War and how important we were in that particular era. I don't hear about it a lot. I research it myself, and you're absolutely right. It was a lack of a better word, it was a business decision with regards to Abraham Lincoln, and I'll leave it as that because we got to move on with some more questions with you. So they had a discussion about this long after we started pulling down the Confederate traitors. Now, I don't know how many of us within our studies really are understanding, you know, the Confederate States and the history of that. I know that you do, but I'm just saying, I don't know just on a average daily basis if we're understanding the whole Civil War, Confederate States, and things that are happening right now. But there's some images of the Confederate traitors that people are still holding on to, especially Blacks. Why is that? Is that back to the post-traumatic slavery disease? Why are we still holding on to those images?
It most certainly is. And one thing that Black people have to be very clear about, we have to be very clear about being fed distractions and scapegoats, which are taking the place of more systemic and relevant changes that are needed. So for example, when Dylan Roof walked into that church in South Carolina and murdered 9 Africans, including 6 mothers, instead of the state of South Carolina and the federal government dealing with the economic inequities and the educational disparities, instead of dealing with our access to capital and the disadvantaged opportunities that Black people have throughout the state of South Carolina, rather than deal with the problems, they took the Confederate flag down, as if taking down the Confederate flag is going to make the schools better, as if taking the Confederate flag down is going to stop police from killing Black people, as if taking the Confederate flag down is going to reduce the sentencing disparity between Black and white people for the exact same crime, as if taking the Confederate flag down is going to give Black people access to wealth or stop the gentrification of our neighborhoods. And I see the same thing with the statues. They want to take down the statues of Confederate generals. I don't want them statues taken down. Leave them up. And why do I want them left up? When I take my children on Black history tours, I want them to know who those devils were. I want them to know what they were fighting for. I want Black children to know what the Confederate States was about. Don't take them down, because to take them down is to hide the history that Black children need to understand about the United States of America. By we condoning the removal of these Confederate statues, we are allowing the government to sanitize and whitewash its embarrassing, corrupt history right before our eyes. You don't deal with mistruth by hiding it. You deal with mistruth by exposing it. Leave the statues up and give me my share of America's wealth. Give me my share of America's hospitals. Give me my share of America's banks, America's land, America's supermarkets, America's import-export industry. I don't care about no dead white men on statues. I want resources for my community.
Dr. Umar Johnson, I'm gonna tell you, you are lighting up urban interest today. Let's talk about your passions. Let's talk about this upcoming lecture, because you are going to be right here in the city of Detroit in the state of Michigan, and it's going to be soon. So let's talk about that.
Yes, ma'am. Next Sunday, April the 24th, Dr. Umar will be back in Detroit, Highland Park to be exact, and we will be at the Hamilton Tucker Art Gallery. That is the Hamilton Tucker Art Gallery, located at, and I don't have the address. Yes, I do. I'm sorry. 16065 Hamilton Avenue, 16065 Hamilton Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan, 48203. It is a free event. You don't need to register. You don't need any tickets. Come as you are. Bring the children, bring the elders. And that's next Sunday, April the 24th. Doors will open up at 2 p.m. sharp. I will speak from 3 until 5, and I will sign copies of my new book, Black Parent Advocate, for those who wish to purchase it, from 5 until 7. So again, doors at 2 and program from 3 until 7, Highland Park. And it's my first time speaking in the Detroit area since 2020, when I keynoted the UNIA's Marcus Garvey celebration out in the park back on August of 2020. So it's been almost 3 years. So I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, awesome. You say that on your flyer, there's a saying that you have, and I wanna bring our audience into focus of it. It says, We must become independent or we will become extinct.
Yes.
Some will say, oh my goodness, this is alarming. So can you expound on that sentiment, that statement that you made on the flyer?
Absolutely, I would. And just to show your audience, this is a picture of my new book, Black Parent Advocate, 500 pages of information that teaches parents how to protect our kids from the special education and ADHD exploitation. To the quote, what I plan on focusing on in Highland Park is the need for African people to get organized and to get galvanized and to get mobilized, because America's agenda for the African in this country right now is extermination. I want to be absolutely clear about this. This is not oppression. Oppression is when you keep people in a certain place. This is a removal, a Negro removal campaign. COVID is a part of that. Mass incarceration is a part of that. Poor diet and healthcare is a part of that. You understand? Black on black crime is a part of that. Abortion is a part of that. So we are in a stage of fighting for our survival. We've had 4 great struggles in our 400 years. Our first struggle was a struggle for humanity. We had to prove that we were human beings. If you would remember, we were considered chattel, things, objects, property, animals. We were counted no greater than a dog. So we had to fight to prove that we were not monkeys. Our first struggle was a struggle for humanity. Our second struggle was a struggle for liberty, to be free. Our third struggle was a struggle for equality, justice. And now we're living in the fourth struggle, which began in the 21st century and intensified in the Barack Obama era. And that is the struggle for survival. This is an extermination. This is an American purge of the Negro. And the reason America is bringing Afghan refugees here, the reason America is bringing Ukrainian refugees here is because America's white people, their numbers are dwindling. Their population is shrinking. And what does America do whenever the white population shrinks? They import white people from abroad. And so the Afghans and the Ukrainians is America's way of trying to get her numbers back up. They sent the Haitians back home. They sent the Haitians back home, but they welcomed the Afghans and the Ukrainians. Why? So they can take your black jobs and take your black neighborhood and take your black child's college scholarship and take your opportunities away, which is ironic because we have so many black people who are dedicated multiculturalists. They love fighting for other people's problems. Black people can never speak about any problem without including some other group's interests. But how many times do Chinese mention black people? How many times do Mexicans mention black people? How many times do Latinos mention black people? How many times do Arabs mention black people? Nobody fights for black people, but black people love to fight for other people. And if we are ever going to become free and reverse this extermination campaign, the time has come, as the most honorable Marcus Garvey said, to speak for ourselves. When I go into a meeting to discuss special education and ADHD and conduct disorder and oppositional defiant disorder and autism and emotional disturbance, I'm not talking about the white kids, the brown kids, the yellow kids. I'm talking about the black kids, because black children don't have anybody fighting for them, because every time our leaders, so-called leaders, open their mouth, they want to fight for everybody under the rainbow, failing to recognize that the color black is not in the rainbow.
You said we need to galvanize, organize, galvanize, and mobilize.
You must build.
A part of that, and I'm sure you probably will agree, is the political system. We see, you know, in Urban Interest, we do a lot of course, stories and reports, and we've seen that there's a chess game that's been playing, but some other people are playing checkers. So there's some strategic places that are being made. How can we sit back and allow these suppressive and oppressive tactics of voting? How can we sit back and allow that when we see that they're stripping that right to vote? And 50 plus years is not long ago, because I know some people who are 50 years old and they don't look like it. So it's not long ago with having the right to vote. So talk about just a little bit about that strategic plot and placement on that particular level, if you can.
A couple of points. Point number one, we have to be clear about something. Voting rights is not a primary critical issue in Black America. The 5 major problems we have are miseducation, mass incarceration, police extermination, access to wealth, and gentrification. Miseducation, mass incarceration, gentrification, police extermination, and access to wealth, not voting rights. So are you saying our people should not vote or take it seriously? No, I'm not. But we need to put it within context. And in putting it in context, we need to understand that everything we got in this country, we got through blood sacrifice. If I'm wrong, I need somebody to name anything significant gained by Black folks that was not gained through blood sacrifice. What do I mean by that? How did you get out the Civil War? You bled to get out the Civil War. You shed blood to get your freedom. How did you get the 1964 Civil Rights Bill? Because Black people got dog sicked on them, and Black women had their breasts bit off, and Dr. King had his house blown up twice. You shed blood for the Civil Rights Bill. How did you get the Voting Rights Act? Because Queen Mother Fannie Lou Hamer got beat almost to death inside of a prison cell, and then went to the Democratic National Convention and gave her testimony as to how Black people in the Mississippi Delta was being denied the right to vote. You didn't get nothing you got except through blood. And the irony is most of us claim to be Christians. Didn't God send his son here to die? If Jesus had to die for your sins, what makes you think you ain't got to die for your freedom? If Jesus had to die for your sins, what makes you think you got to die for your freedom? Voting will change nothing, ever, and it never has. If voting could change anything for Black people, voting would be illegal. If we want the vote to matter, with that being said, if we want the Black vote to matter, we have to organize it on a race-first platform. And we have to separate from the Democratic Party and the Republican Party and the Green Party and the Libertarian. All Black people must divest from white political parties, start our own Black political union, and vote based on the best interests of Black people. As long as we are married to the Democratic Party, for whom we've been voting loyally since Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal. 1933, Black folks started voting Democrat. It's been almost 100 years, and you're still voting Democrat. What have you gotten for all your loyalty to the Democratic Party? You voted for Joe Biden. Joe Biden went on the Breakfast Club and told Charlemagne that if you don't vote for me, you ain't Black. A white man had the audacity to tell Black people, if you don't vote for me, you're not Black. And then Joe Biden turned around and did what? He passed an anti-Asian bill. He passed a transgender bill. He passed the Native American bill. He passed a Ukrainian executive order, an Afghan executive order. I got a question for all my Negro Democrats. How is it you're the reason Joe Biden got the White House and he ain't done nothing for you since he been in there? Oh, they gave you Kamala Harris, a Black woman who goes home to a white man. Oh, they gave you Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, a Black woman who goes home to a white man. Give me a break. We don't need democracy. We need revolution.
I will drop a mic right there, but I gotta ask you a few more questions, Dr. Johnson.
And before you do that, and we're good on time, before you do that,
okay,
I want to let your parents know that if they ever have an issue involving their children, because my expertise is education and mental health, they can always reach out to me. I want every parent in Michigan and wherever else your viewers may live. If the school wants to put your kid on medication, if they want them in special education, they want to suspend them, expel them, whatever the situation is, and you need some expert advice from a school psychologist and a certified school principal, you can reach out to me by phone. And they can reach out to me at 8444 Dr. Umar. That's 844-4 DRUMAR. 844-4 DRUMAR. They can also text message me on my personal cell. I don't mind because everybody has it anyway. And that's 215-989-9858. Again, 215-989-9858. And if anyone needs the flyer for next Sunday's program in Highland Park, they can also text 215-989-9858.
All right, everyone, we are still with Dr. Umar Johnson. And as you can see, transparently, passionately speaking and speaking truth and dropping nuggets that you will not hear on, I don't know, I call it mainstream media, but you're hearing it right here on Urban Interest because, again, we bring to you people, news, information that you need to know from our perspective. That's why you need to subscribe. I'm gonna throw that in there too, to this channel, UIN Broadcast. So Dr. Johnson, you are the author of Psychoacademic Holocaust, the special
as
education.
well as Black Parent Advocate. So Psychoacademic Holocaust is the first book. The new book that I'll have next week is Black Parent Advocate.
Okay. Now, is that the special education and ADHD wars against Black boys? Is that with the Psychoacademic Holocaust?
Yes, ma'am. That's the first book. Now, the new one is Black Parent Advocate, The Art of War for Dealing with America's Public and Charter Schools. And so this book picks up on where the first book left off.
Okay.
And the reason I won't have the first book next Sunday in Highland Park is because I'm working on a second edition. So that will come, that book will be re-released sometime this summer. But this is the book that every parent needs to get. It's divided in two parts. The first part of Black Parent Advocate is a collection of letters already prepared for the school. All you have to do is find a letter that's relevant to your child's situation, reproduce the letter, and send it in. If they want to put your child on medication and you don't want your child on Ritalin or Adderall or Concerta or Metadate, guess what? I have the letter in here that you need to give the school. You see, if your child doesn't pledge the flag and they cannot make your child pledge the flag, that is a protected right under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, and they're questioning your child about not pledging the flag, I got the letter in here. Your child is in special ed and they need special ed, but they're not getting a quality special ed service, I have the letter in here. If you need to file a complaint against your child's school with the U.S. Department of Education, guess what? I have the letter in here. So this is as simple as it gets for a parent to fight back against the miseducation machine, i.e. the psychoacademic Holocaust.
All right, sir. I keep saying your name because I want to drill it in people's head. Dr. Umar Johnson, he's with us today on Urban Interest. And at some point, Dr. Johnson, are you trying to, or will you be starting a school for Black boys, the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey RBG International Leadership Academy? Is this still your goal? And if so,
absolutely. It is my life's goal. We can't solve every problem under the African umbrella in one lifetime. So we have to pick, where am I going to make my contribution to the African liberation struggle? Booker T. Washington gave us Tuskegee. Mary McLeod Bethune gave us Bethune-Cookman College. The most honorable Marcus Garvey gave us the greatest and the largest and the most effective Black organization ever. Dr. King made his contribution through getting the Civil Rights Bill passed and the Voting Rights Act. Frederick Douglass made his contribution through helping to end slavery and give us the 14th Amendment and the 15th Amendment. I'm going to make my contribution by building independent, revolutionary, African-centered leadership academies all across the world. The first school will be in Wilmington, Delaware. It is already there. It is 4 beautiful buildings. We're currently getting it renovated right now. God willing, the Marcus Garvey Elementary School will be renovated by the end of this summer in time for the 2nd annual FDMG Family Festival. So let me take this time to invite you and all your listeners to come to Wilmington, Delaware, which is right next to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So you fly into the Philadelphia International Airport, and that festival will be held on Saturday, September 10th. That is 9/10, September the 10th of 2022. From 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. will be the 2nd annual FDMG Festival. It is free. There will be food, there will be music, there will be performers, there will be drumming, there will be giveaways. It will be a beautiful time. We also have activities for the children, games, old school games. We're getting them off the video game and taking them back to the potato sack race, taking them back to picking up the apple in your mouth. We want them to get back into being physically active because the video game movement has given birth to a whole generation of obesity and lethargy in Black children. And so we're working on the Garvey Elementary School. And then next year, we hope to start renovation on the Frederick Douglass High School. We have 2 schools right across the street from each other. Once the campus is completed, we will be the only independent Black school in America with 2 real schools, and we will be the largest independent Black school campus in America. And if anybody wants to donate, they can get on their Cash App, $FDMG School. I repeat, on your Cash App, $FDMG School, or on your PayPal, you can go to FDMG Academy on your PayPal. And again, that information is also on my website, drumarjohnson.com. They can also mail in a check or money order if they choose. And of course, they have my phone number if they want me to text them the donation links, the donation information, and of course, the flyer for next Sunday, April 24th lecture in Highland Park. So we are pushing on because we have to raise the consciousness, but we can't be content with raising the consciousness, because right now in the Black consciousness movement, most of the prominent speakers are comfortable just speaking and talking. That's not going to change anything. Frederick Douglass was one of the greatest orators we ever had, but he had to tear down the walls of slavery to make a change. Marcus Garvey was one of the greatest orators we've ever had, but he had to give us a movement to bring about the downfall of neocolonialism in Africa. He couldn't just talk. I'm the most requested speaker of my race. I'm probably the #1 speaker of my race. I'm definitely the most popular Pan-Africanist in the world. But guess what? That's not going to change nothing. So I'm building the school to show the next generation talk is cheap unless you back it up with deeds.
Dr. Umar Johnson, I wish I could just talk with you some more for another hour or two. But I know that we have to segue and to bring it to a close. And I'm telling you, it has been an honor and a privilege for you to be on Urban Interest. You've dropped so many nuggets and so many jewels and so many things that can awaken our consciousness, but also you're calling us to action too. So let's give them again where you're going to be on Sunday, April the 24th. I also have the number here. If somebody needs to text you or get in touch with you right away, so to speak, is 215-989-9858, 215-989-9858. drumarjohnson.com is his website. Again, tell us where you're going to be. Hamilton Tucker Arts Center, is that it?
Art Gallery.
Art Gallery. I think that's 16065 Hamilton
Avenue
in Highland Park.
Yes, ma'am. Doors at 2. Program from 3 until 7. I will speak for the first 2 hours and sign copies of the new book for the second 2 hours. Absolutely free, no tickets. Just bring your African self and I will re-Africanize your mind. You will show up a Negropean, but you will go home a revolutionary Pan-Africanist, brothers and sisters. It is all Africans will be free or no Africans will be free.
Oh, Dr. Umar Johnson, you are awesome and amazing. Thank you. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your transparency and just being a powerful Black man who's speaking power into your Black people. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely.
Anything else you want to leave our audience with?
With a quote from the 2 namesakes of my academy, our academy. And first, let me say thank you to all the donors from Michigan. We received plenty of donations, Cash App, PayPal, as well as check and money order from the brothers and sisters from Flint, from Pontiac, from Ann Arbor, from Benton Harbor. I get a lot of love from Detroit. So I want to say thank you to all my Detroit FDMG donors. And I hope to see everybody not only on April the 24th in Highland Park, but also September 10th in Wilmington, Delaware. But I want to leave you with a quote from both. The most honorable Marcus Garvey said, "If the Black man and woman are not careful, we will drink in all the poison of Western civilization and die from the effects of it." Garvey said the greatest weapon used against the Negro is disorganization. Frederick Douglass said, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess the faith of freedom and deprecate agitation are like men who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want the rain but can't stand the thunder or the lightning. They want the ocean, but they're scared of the awful roar of its waters." Frederick Douglass said, "For 20 years, I prayed on my knees to God for freedom. But the good Lord gave me no freedom until I got up off my knees and prayed with my feet He said, power conceives nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will.
Everyone, I'm going to do this. And that means the mic has dropped. That means the word has been said and no more needs to be said. Thank you so much, Dr. Umar Johnson, Doctor of Clinical Psychology and certified school psychologist, who is an expert in education and mental health of African and African-American children, but also history and what we need to do to get our feet moving. We need to get up and get it going. Dr. Umar, we'll see you later.
Will do, Queen.
Listen, everyone, then we're going to take a break and then we will come back and wrap up this segment of Urban Interest. That was awesome and powerful. When you see this, I want you to go back and I want you to review it again, because Dr. Johnson said a lot and you need to catch it and you need to take notes. I always take notes. So make sure you do that. We'll take a quick break. We'll come right back.
Movies, documentaries, TV shows, local, national, world news, history, and culture. No network can tell your story better than UIN, because we are you. With us, you can become more than just a consumer. You become a keeper of the culture and empowered. Go to uintv.net, click on a channel to support and subscribe today. Do it now.
For a history you won't forget and an experience you'll always remember, visit the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History with engaging educational programs, lectures, entertainment, and enlightening exhibits. You'll gain valuable insight and be motivated to inform others. The Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, located in the heart of Midtown Detroit. For more information or to schedule a tour, visit thewright.org.
All right, everyone, you have been with Urban Interest today. I am your host, Angela Matthews. This is Easter Resurrection Weekend, whichever holiday you want to term it. Just celebrate in whatever fashion that is conducive and comfortable for you. Today we had on our stories, we talked about the immigrant that had been killed execution style by Grand Rapids police. That was a very tragic situation. And in the video, you saw Breonna Taylor's mom supporting that family because she knows all too well that incident. What will happen? We will keep you abreast of that stories, as well as California passed the most progressive reparations report. And we will see if others will take note, as well as if that will be a model with regards to reparations. And then we had the famed, very passionate, intellectual person by the name of Dr. Umar Johnson. He is a doctor of clinical psychology and certified school psychologist who is considered an expert on the education and mental health of African and African-American children. He will be in the Detroit area, and that is on Sunday, April the 24th at the Hamilton Tucker Art Gallery, and that is at 16065 Hamilton Avenue. That is in Highland Park, Michigan, and that is free. The doors will open at 2 p.m. and he will take the stage and speak from 3 to 5, as well as he has his book. And let me see if I can get that book. It's on Black parenting, everything that you need to know. In the book, he said that he has whatever letters that you need to write, to people with regards to your child when they're trying to put them on so much medication. You're not for that, as well as having concerns. So make sure that you get there. April 24th, again, 2 p.m. Doors open. It is free. He will speak from 3 to 5. Black Parent Advocate is, I do believe, the name of his book or something with regards to that. And you can get that book there. A number that you can reach Dr. Umar Johnson is at 215-989-9858. That's 215-989-9858. He says we need to organize, galvanize, and mobilize, because there is a conscious effort to eradicate us and remove us, Black Americans, from the face of this earth, as well as from history. So you can get there on April 24th. or if you have questions, you can give him a call. You can catch this on DetroitIPTV.com or our UIN broadcast channel, or go to urban.interest, urban.interest. Like I said, make sure that you view this segment. If you have to view it again, because he dropped a lot of nuggets that are so important to us and what's going on today. All right, have a great weekend. We will see you Monday with new stories as well as guests.